Welcome to Coach Connects. Coach Connects is an umbrella programme for Irish cricket coaches, providing opportunities for qualified coaches and non-coaches alike to share knowledge, network, participate in training and to learn from some of the best coaches in cricket. This is our coach discussions piece, where we give coaches the platform to share their story. You'll hear from coaches, giving insights on coaching from different sporting codes that will help you in your coaching journey. I am your host, Stephen Maxwell, and welcome to Coach Discussions. This week, our coaching guest is Naomi Scott Hayward. Welcome, Naomi, and thanks for joining us today.
Delighted to be here, Stephen.
Brilliant. So to start, Naomi, would you like to share with those of you listening to this, who is Naomi Scott Hayward?
I work with Cricket Leinster as the South Leinster Development Manager and specifically coaching in the South Dublin region.
That's fantastic. And within the South Dublin region, so are we talking Dunleary, Rathdown as a county council? Is that your area specifically?
It's South Dublin County Council area, so it kind of spans between kind of Tala across to Walkinstown and into Rathfarnham, across to Lucan and all the way across kind of it's quite a large region. So we go into about 36 schools, primary schools across the region and secondary schools as well, and then do disability programs as well.
That's fantastic. So you're a full-time development officer, which is brilliant because we're going to talk career paths in a while. So we'll come back to that. So I have an important question for you, Naomi. What is coaching to you?
Well, I think coaching is more about kind of facilitating the environment that the player is in. Like every player is different. So I suppose I coach in different environments. So in school environments, you're there to introduce the game, make it fun, make it have that enthusiasm that you bring across as a coach and to really kind of keep that vibrancy going. And obviously you're creating that learning environment as well. So you have the specific things that you want them to learn over those sessions. But I think from a school perspective, it's all about having fun and creating that energy that's there. Whereas I think in clubs, you still want to have that, but you might be a little bit more specific about the skills that they're learning and a little bit more kind of bringing that information out from the kids about what they want to learn. Obviously in a school environment, you're coaching 30 kids, you're kind of coaching the same thing across the board. So you can't be as kind of child-centered, but in a club environment and as a provincial coach as well, like I work with the girls provincial program as well, and in different environments you're creating that learning environment for the player, finding out what they need from it and then creating that environment for them.
That's brilliant and very informative for our audience. Thanks for sharing, Naomi. So on our coach discussion show, it's about coaches sharing their own story. So I put it to you, why do you coach in the first place?
Well, it wasn't really the career path that I was thinking of. I mean, I did finance and accounting actually as my original degree. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to be an accountant. But I went in, I remember going into some interviews after I finished my degree and going, God, this isn't for me at all. I don't want to be kind of stuck in an office at that point. And I kind of loved the outdoors. I loved coaching in my club. I kind of started coaching in North Kildare Cricket Club. And that's my club. I've been there for, I think it's 19 seasons now, and we're kind of reflecting on it there fondly with some old members. But yeah, I started coaching there quite a young age, kind of started when I was 14, I'd say, actually coaching. And that would have been before doing any kind of formal coaching, qualifications or anything like that. I started cricket when I was 12, so that kind of would be considered a little bit late in some ways. So it wouldn't be in my family really at all. Myself and my sister, we started in school when we were in secondary school in the King's Hospital. And there was a lady there, Zoe Lipson, who kind of got us into cricket and said, come down to the local club. You guys are pretty decent. Let's give this a try. And like, as some people might know, like Naomi Scott Hayward, my sister, she's only 2 minutes older, and she's been playing for Ireland and that sort of thing. So she's had that career path on another side of cricket. But yeah, so I just joined the local club and started coaching there and helping out. I think really my love of coaching came from the coach that I had there, which was Nigel Fine, and he started coaching us, and he was involved in kind of the boys provincial program in Leinster, and some of the girls stuff and some of the Cricket Ireland programs as well. And he'd be an avid coach, you know, and I think I kind of just saw him coaching and was like, oh, I kind of want to be like him, you know, like it's kind of, I like the way he kind of like created that energy that was there, and created that love for the sport. Like I didn't think I was sporty at all before that, you know. It was like when I went to primary school, I was not the sportiest person. I was like the chess nerd, but like sports wasn't for me. I didn't have a great experience growing up in sports. Like I would have been stuck in goals in camogie, couldn't get out of there. Like I was the person that put up their hand, you know, one day, and then sure nobody else wanted to go in goals. And our team was pretty good, so I never touched the ball, like, you know, that sort of way. So I felt kind of useless, and I wasn't any good at sports until I found cricket in primary school, secondary school. So yeah, I think coaching was just kind of a natural thing to do because I loved passing on information to others. I loved learning things myself, and then passing that on to others. So I would have done that all the way through school in loads of different aspects, and cricket was just another one of them throughout secondary school. And then when I finished my finance and accounting degree, I went on to do a secondary school teaching degree, thinking, you know, teaching was the way to go, because I suppose back then there wasn't really like coaching jobs available. I mean, there still isn't as many as you'd like there to be, but there's definitely far more opportunities now than there used to be. So I think I was just lucky that by the time my secondary school teaching degree was finishing, an opening came up in South Dublin County Council for a part-time development officer role, and I just jumped at it. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I took the leap of faith and went for it, and did part-time for 1 year, went full-time the next year, and then just have been working with South Dublin County Council since then. So that's 7-8 years now. Something like that.
Fantastic. That's a journey. You're after bringing us on a great journey here, Naomi. So that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. There's a few points we'll come back to that you mentioned there, but something I'm really interested in, because obviously you've mentioned 8 years now you're working as a development officer. There's a lot of coaching within that. So first of all, do you have a coaching philosophy? And then has it changed over the years if you do have one?
Well, I suppose to me, like, I think it's just all about, as I kind of said earlier, around kind of that facilitator role, and really getting to know the kids as much as possible, and creating that learning environment for them. I think sometimes you create these session plans, and it's all well and good. You have to have your session plans and be planned and everything else, but you also have to adapt to like what the kids want and what they need. You know, sometimes we have these plans and they just don't always go to plan. So you have to be adaptable as a coach. That's for sure, especially in Ireland with the weather that we have and everything else. Like the amount of times I've gone into schools and, you know, it's raining and you're now indoors in a tiny hall with 30 kids and you're trying to go, okay, well, that's definitely not doing batting today, you know. So, you know, just trying to be able to be adaptable and that sort of thing. So I suppose I don't have a specific philosophy as such. But I think it's just all about creating that kind of learning environment and getting to know the players and what they need.
Brilliant. So coming back to coaching then and role models. So you mentioned you had a really good coach at a young age within cricket, but then also you mentioned about, I suppose, maybe a negative experience as a player in camogie. And what have you learned from both? And is that person still your role model today? Or, you know, what is the big message you'd like to share in relation to role models?
Yeah, well, like I always say this, like I do some tutoring as well on coaching courses. And I'm always saying to coaches as they go out there, like, you're definitely a role model. Like kids just, they copy things. You know, like if you're, you know, spitting on the ground, they're going to think that's okay. You know, if you're like chewing gum during a session or whatever, they think that's okay. Like obviously that's not safe. But you know, like you are a role model, and kids in particular and adults as well, like no matter who you're coaching, they do kind of take from what you're doing. So I think it's really important to be that positive role model. Like the coach that I had in Camogie, I'm sure she was brilliant and all, but it was just that I didn't get any individual kind of coaching myself. And because our team was doing so well, like our forwards and everything, we were scoring goals, there was no need to kind of focus on the defense as much. So we kind of got left behind, and I didn't feel like I was learning anything. So I suppose that was in that sport. Like in hockey, interesting enough, I love hockey now, and I play hockey and I coach hockey as well in our local club in North Kildare. But during secondary school, I hated hockey because we had to do it. From first to third year, we were told you had to do hockey, and then you had to pick any summer sport. You could pick your summer sport. But as a girl in the Queen's Hospital, you had to do hockey first and third year. As soon as third year was done and gone, I was like, yes, I don't have to do hockey anymore. Like I was out of there. But then I picked it up again in college, and I got roped in NUI Maynooth, and I got roped in then as well in the club because I played cricket in the club. I got roped into the hockey section as well because they were like, oh, she played in, we're short, you know, where she played in school and all that sort of stuff. And I really loved the coaches in the hockey because they had, again, like there was a sense of camaraderie between the team, and I think the coach helped with that. They kind of brought the team together, and so did the captains were really good at that time as well. So there's that kind of sense of belonging, and also like it's not just you're turning up and playing a match, you're actually learning the skills and everything as well. So it's a combination of that, of kind of feeling like you're part of a team. Like there's a reason why I'm still with North Kildare, you know, almost 20 years later, you know, and I'm never going to leave that club unless I move country or move county or something like that. But I mean, I think that sense of belonging in a club is really a lovely feeling to have.
That's brilliant. And in fairness, you've mentioned North Kildare Cricket Club a few times. Can you take us through the roles you've gone through within the club? Because obviously we know you've played, we know you coach, and you've worked your way up the ladder as a volunteer and an administrator as well. Would you care to share?
Yeah, like I actually joined the committee when I was 16, so only about 4 years after I started playing in the club in cricket. And I suppose I haven't left the committee. I'm still on it somehow. They haven't got rid of me yet. I started as the vice captain of our women's twos at the time, I think it was, and then just various roles as captain, vice captain of our women's twos. And I think then I was the secretary of the club for a number of years as well. And then with the finance and accounting background as well, I did treasurer for a few years as well. And then I was helping out a lot in the as like a manager and coach of various different teams within the youth section. And so I would have also been kind of, I wasn't the youth coordinator, but I would have helped out a lot with the youth coordinator, and we would have, I suppose, this kind of that like head coach sort of role in some senses, that I was kind of coordinating the different coaches for the club. So we're completely volunteer based. Like we have one paid coach at the moment, like a pro that comes in, and this year that's for the first time this year KP has joined us, and he's coaching, you know, in the women's section and the youth section and the men's. But other than that, like it's very much volunteer based and community based. Like we always say to parents, we have like a nice big kind of meet and greet at the start of the year with the parents, and we usually we run the sessions for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we have this kind of get together of all the parents while the kids are all playing, and we have a chat with them about the fact that, you know, like we are a club, we're a community, we're like a second family for a lot of people. Like, you know, we're here to kind of give back to each other. And, you know, like I was coached myself, and then by somebody who volunteered, and then I volunteered to coach then when it comes around to my turn, you know, and we all kind of help out. So that's how we kind of try and foster that relationship with the parents then as well, and try and bring them on board. So I suppose that's kind of my role at the moment, is kind of helping our new junior coordinator with kind of the coaches and that sort of thing, and guiding coaches on their kind of journey as well. suppose I'm lacking in time this year a little bit, but that's the essence of the role, to be able to do that and try and get people onto coaching courses as well, because I think sometimes we think we know it all, and we kind of teach the way we play, and that's not always correct either. You know, we do need to have the kind of the fundamentals of our basic skills and that sort of thing, and make sure that we're not sometimes people who've never done any coaching courses before, they might be coaching something, especially with bowling, something as technical as bowling. You know, there's a lot of things that you could be teaching incorrectly, and then ends up with players having, you know, injuries and things like that. So I think it's really important to kind of go on that coaching path as well. It doesn't mean you have to be aiming for level 3 or anything like that, but I do think it's important to kind of have a basic kind of level of understanding, and have that kind of confidence that comes with having a coaching qualification as well. So I think that's an important thing to kind of point them in the direction of, and make sure that they have their guard bedding and safeguarding and all that sort of thing as well. So it's
brilliant. So Naomi, you've touched on building relationships a few times throughout the discussion, and I'm just wondering, when you're working with a team directly as the coach or head coach, how do you build a rapport and then in turn build a relationship with your players? Any tips for coaches listening in?
Yeah, I suppose like it's really important to have those team talks after matches and before matches. Like, you can't just turn up and be like, okay, we're batting first, you know, toss is done, batting first, you 4 pad up, and you just get on with the game. Like, you need to bring them together and kind of set out what you're going to be doing for the day, you know, like whether that's, you know, for a session or for a match. You know, I'd always have that kind of, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, and kind of everyone's kind of on board. And I suppose, like, say I was in Adamstown there coaching, and we kind of brought them in, we tell them, you know, this is what we're planning to do, and they're like, oh, like, can we play diamond cricket? And like, that's your opportunity to kind of go, yeah, okay, actually we're going to change yeah, we can do diamond cricket, because like there's 20 of you here all wanting to do diamond cricket, so we're going to go and play that, you know. And it kind of, if you're listening to them, then they'll listen to you, you know. And I think that's a two-way relationship, so you have to kind of pick that up and make sure that you're not just doing what you want to do in the sessions or in the matches, and you're taking their opinions on board as well, and what they want to do. So I think that creates that two-way conversation, and it creates that kind of approachability as well, because I think that's really important as a coach. Like, you could be that, like, there's this Jigsaw, I don't know if you've heard of Jigsaw before, so they work on a lot of things around kind of mental health and that sort of thing, and kind of building relationships, and they have a phrase like one good adult. And I always think, like, one good coach, like, you know, you could be that one person in their life right now that's having that like a positive adult role model, you know, and you kind of have to be there for them, you know. So I think that's really important to kind of build that approachability and that two-way conversation with the kids. And I think setting some ground rules sometimes. I mean, I remember there was I won't name them, but there was a team in one of the schools, and they were doing really well. Like, they were winning all their matches and everything else, and it was in kind of one of our leagues this year. But like, the way they celebrated was just a little bit in your face and kind of running around the pitch, like jumping up and down and everything. And, you know, you kind of have to rein them in a little bit and kind of go, look, it's great that you've won and I'm really proud of you, but you have to think about how the other team feels right now. And like, can you please say, like, you know, go over, shake hands and say, like, hard luck, well done, you know, like, and, you know, creating those environments, like, you have to kind of pull them back sometimes. And if there's bad behavior or anything like that, like, sitting them down and just having a conversation and asking, you know, like, how do you think that makes somebody else feel? You know, I think that's really important to give that kind of, create that awareness for them, you know, that sort of way. So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
No, that's brilliant. And like, the take homes even from that short piece there, so the one good coach, empathy and humility. So thanks for sharing, Naomi. So you've mentioned career path wise, you've done some teaching practice. So in relation to teaching, is there any learnings that you took from your teaching days and still use today in your coaching days?
Yeah, definitely. Like, getting people's attention at the start of a session or the start of a match or anything is absolutely key. Like, I think one of the things that we learned around kind of the behavior kind of parts and things like that about, you know, if someone isn't paying attention to a particular drill or you know, part that you're doing, maybe you have different groups that are working together, instead of always saying like you're doing something wrong, or you know, like giving out to somebody. Sometimes it's good to actually compliment the people beside them that are doing really well, and they're almost looking for that compliment then themselves, and they start to behave. So there's little things like that we learned within like our teaching practice blocks, and within like the methodologies of teaching and that sort of thing, that, you know, helped with that kind of behavior side of things. And also like just voice projection, and having that kind of sense of like kind of, you have to have a sense of authority in some ways. Like you don't want to be too like friendly with the kids or adults that you're with. You have to have a little bit of a level of like, you are the coach. There needs to be that kind of respect, but at the same time, kind of having that line where you kind of go, okay, I'm the coach here, I'm the authority, but also I'm going to listen to you guys and see what you guys want from this. So I think like within teaching, you learn a lot about the different methodologies and that people learn differently as well. And I think that helped as well. Like there's the different types of learners, and understanding how I learn as well. I think that's important. Because like I would be quite a visual learner. Like I wouldn't sit down and read a book that often. If I do, it's usually fiction. So I don't know, like it's, you know, I'm a really, really slow reader. Like people think that that's not true, but I'm like, no, actually it really is, and I'm very, very slow reader. So I'd be more likely to watch a video, or you know, or that sort of thing, you know. So I think knowing that about myself, and then understanding that other people have that as well, and they might learn differently to me. So, you know, what works for me might not work for them. And so I think that all kind of came through when I was doing the teaching practice. Yeah,
that's another great tip for coaches, Naomi. So learning styles. Thanks for sharing. Now, knowing a little bit about what you do, and I've met you a few times through our roles within cricket, I know you're very passionate about inclusion. So how important is inclusion in coaching, and can you share?
Yeah, I think inclusion and diversity is really important. I mean, we have an environment where like cricket is actually a really inclusive sport. I mean, we have, I think it's about 15% of our population are people with disabilities. So if you think about it, if we're not including them, we're excluding 15% of our population. Like, and I think it's higher in kind of Dublin and the commuter belts of like Kildare and Meath and that. So, you know, that's just an average of 15% across Ireland, you know. But I just think it's important to make sure that you're coaching for them. You're not coaching for you. Like, it's not all about winning the matches. It's about making sure that each player is getting what they need. Like, they're all doing a sport for a different reason, you know. Like, so like somebody with a disability, that maybe, you know, it's great if they just bowl 3 balls in a row, like, you know, is brilliant, you know. But for somebody else, it might be, you know, trying to hit 6s. You know, it's different for everybody, and I think you have to cater for everybody. We can't close our doors in clubs to people in the community. We need to keep them wide open and invite as many people in as possible. We're a small sport, and I think that the more that we grow it, the more different types of people that are going to come through our doors as well. And I think we have to foster that community and that sense of the different cultures that are in our clubs, trying to bring them together. Like, cricket and sport in general is a great way of integrating people into our society, into our groups. Like, there was I know in Adamstown there, I was coaching earlier on last week, and there was a lady there that had only been in the country 2 weeks, and she was down with her son, and he was making friends, and she was there, and she was like making friends as well. And it was great to see that, you know, someone who's only been in the country two weeks, and they're laughing and smiling and creating these rapport with others, you know. So I suppose that's more from a diversity side of things, but it's inclusion as well. And then I suppose from the kind of disability side of things, like, for people who don't know, like, We have table cricket that's there. Table cricket is like a version of cricket that's played on a tabletop. So you have kind of three like the sides of the tables, three sides of the tables have a little barrier that goes up, and you have slidable fielders that goes along, and little mini bat and a mini ball. A ball goes down the ramp and you can hit it into different kind of scoring zones, and then the fielders are trying to stop the ball from hitting the sides of the different scoring zones. So you kind of have that teamwork, and all the kind of fine motor skills are being used, all of that sort of thing. And you can also then do adaptive cricket alongside that, and when you combine those two together, we call it cricket for all. So that's what we do in a number of different areas across South Dublin County Council. And we actually had our first table cricket competition for primary schools this year, which we were like absolutely delighted with. It was probably the best coaching moment this year, for sure. Yeah, like I would say, like there was a moment during that we had three teams from three teams from different schools, and they're playing against each other, and we all gave them the cricket tops. I'm actually wearing one of them today from the Lord's Taverners, our charity partners. They've supported us throughout, like I don't know how long they've been with us, about 10 years now. So like this has been building up to be able to do that, but it's been fantastic. Like I think seeing like a player there that's playing table cricket, and during their sessions they would never be able to concentrate enough and have the will to be able to kind of actually bowl like 6 balls in a row, and that was the first time that they actually did it. Like they'd never done more than 2. And like just the small little things that you're like, that's such a big step forward for that person. And I think that's probably the best moments have been kind of when I'm coaching people with disabilities. Like I find it more rewarding or something like that. I don't know, it's just brings a smile to your face, you know.
That's brilliant. And listen, there's loads of learnings and take homes from that piece there. Like, you know, table cricket, for those who don't know, we now have a greater knowledge of it. So thanks for sharing, Naomi. You talked here about moments within cricket. So what was your biggest learning moment in coaching cricket so far?
I would say that there hasn't been a big aha kind of moment. I feel like there's always constantly something to learn. Like you're always, every session that you do, every match that you do, like every time you're coaching with somebody else, you're like constantly learning something different. Like every time I'm coaching other coaches on tutoring on courses, and you're learning from them as well, because sometimes like you're setting up and you're telling them to do a warm up or something like that, and then they do something different that you haven't seen before. You know, you're always learning something a bit different. And I think like some of the biggest kind of moments have been kind of when I've kind of reflected on sessions and asked for feedback, I suppose. Like I suppose if I had to pick one, it would be like I did my level 2 assessment with Ted Williamson, and I coached a group of players, and then afterwards, you know, we broke it down, like the session plan and how we did, and reflecting on it. And I think his feedback was really vital, because it wasn't just like, oh yeah, tick boxes and that sort of thing. It was really specific to the session that we were doing. And I think getting that feedback from others, from your peers, or from people who, you know, even from the kids themselves, you know, and how the session goes, I think that's the times when you actually like make a bit more of a connection personally with your own coaching.
That's brilliant. And you mentioned about learning. So from your point of view, where do you learn? Like, where do you find resources? Where do you go to learn something new?
Mainly YouTube. But I'd say, like, if I was trying to kind of recommend something for anybody, it would be that I coach cricket. I think it's from the ECB. So you can kind of create a login there and be able to utilize that. And there's loads of video resources on that. And it kind of filters it between, so you can kind of go into kind of wicket keeping, batting, bowling, and warm up games and things like that. And I think that's probably the biggest resource that I've found. And then just YouTube as well. Like, just if there's anything in particular that you're trying to work, like coach, like the cut shot or something like that, generally if you type in like masterclass and cut shot, and it'll come up with someone who's just like a brilliant cricketer coach, like and showing it how it's done, and sometimes sharing that with the player that you're working with is actually a good idea as well. So it's not just for you as the coach, you know.
That's brilliant. And then, have you any tips for young coaches coming through? So, obviously, you're female. You are a coach educator as well as a coach. You are a coach developer. As you mentioned, you tutor on courses. Any tips for someone coming into coaching in cricket?
Just get as much experience as possible, and in different environments if you can. I think, you know, a lot of the time, like, you will have to volunteer for things. Like the way I kind of started into knowing kind of the coaching pathway within Leinster was I was doing obviously my coaching in North Kildare Club, and then the coach, as I mentioned before, Nigel, he actually was on some of these different coaching pathways that he was coaching in at Leinster squads and things like that. And he said, do you know what, come along, you know, the Friday nights in North County. And I remember, like, my mum used to drop me out, he'd bring me out and bring me back, and I'd just be like ball collecting half the time, you know. And then, you know, I'd graduate into kind of being able to just watch and observe the coaches and what they were doing. And then I remember our drives back from North County, like we'd kind of analyze how it went, and, you know, what one coach could have done a bit better, or, you know, what was really good about a session and that sort of thing. And I think that was really vital. So I think try and get kind of maybe a buddy or someone who's coaching in the club with you that you can kind of reflect on with, and have that kind of feedback loop between yourselves, and just getting that kind of observation of the different environments. Like, we're always happy enough to have people come along to, like, the Leinster Girls provincial programs and help out with them, you know, and we try as much as possible to create those kind of female role models within that environment as well. So we've kind of moved towards having a lot of, we did a female only coaching course for the Coaching Kids course. So that obviously helped as well to get more kind of qualified female coaches. And then we've utilised that to then kind of earmark then to help with those coaching sessions for the provincial program. So it's kind of, if you get in there, do your qualifications if you haven't done them already, get as much experience as possible, observe others, and also try and get that kind of, you know, buddy system as such going with someone that you coach with regularly, or even not regularly, but, like, you know, somebody that can kind of is coaching with you, I think is important, because they could be able to reflect with you.
That's fantastic. And then, you know, it's a time when social media is at its peak. So in relation to social media and podcasts, is there anything you'd recommend of who we should follow, or, you know, what we should listen to in relation to coaching?
Yeah, I suppose, like, I'd listen to the Green Ball, and I'd listen to the Cricket Leinster podcast as well, what do we call them? But yeah, the Cricket Ireland and Cricket Leinster, like those podcasts are brilliant. Like, you just see so much insight from others. It's not all about coaching, but there's some really good ones out there. But again, I think, yeah, just going through YouTube, if there's particular topics that you're really interested in, like, just Google those and look for those sort of things. I think looking at things from different perspectives and seeing them from different cultures is really interesting. So not always looking at it from, like, one perspective. Inside Edge, that's the Cricket Leinster one. It escaped me there for a second. Yeah, I think if you're always looking at things from one point of view, and you're only getting information from one area, you're going to be tainted. I think it's good to kind of look at different ones, and also looking at interviews after matches and things like that is really good as well.
That's brilliant, and I'll share them at the end of the podcast. Thanks, Naomi. We're nearly going full circle now, so, like, just to finish off, like, we've talked about your very unique career path into cricket. So, you know, playing hockey, playing camogie, playing cricket, doing business and economics, I think, going into teaching, and now being a development officer and a development manager within cricket. If there's someone who has a really huge interest in cricket and wants to get into a full-time role in cricket, have you any recommendations?
You probably won't get a job without a qualification. So make sure you get yourself on the coaching path and get your, you know, your guardrabetting, your safeguarding, all of that sorted, because they're just small things that are easily sorted, you know, like it's a small investment for a big return. I think you always have to have experience. You know, there's no point trying to go for a job when, you know, like you have no experience behind you. So not just experiences at coaching. I think a lot of the time, like that kind of managerial kind of work and that administration work, people kind of overlook that sometimes, and they think that just going down and turning up for sessions every Monday night is enough as a coach. You know, like there's that administration part as well. So like, say if we're looking for coaches for going into schools, for example, like they have to sometimes, you know, they have to be good with picking up the phone and having a phone call with the principal, you know, and having that rapport with the teachers and that sort of thing. It's not just about turning up and doing the session. So I think having a bit of a well-rounded background there is important. So just gain experience and get the coaching courses, and make sure you have your guardrabetting and your safeguarding up to date. And first aid is actually overlooked a little bit as well. It's really important to get your first aid as well. It's not something that necessarily is like an absolute have to, depending on what environment you're in. Like if you're in a school, there's always going to be first aiders that are there. But I think it's good to have that knowledge as well. So yeah, just that well-rounded kind of background is good.
That's brilliant, Naomi. And we'll sign off on that piece. So Naomi, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story with our Coach Connects followers. Thanks again.
No worries.
I hope you enjoyed today's coach discussion. If you would like to share your coaching journey, log on to cricketprograms.com/Coach Connects and sign up today. Here are the social media recommendations discussed in today's coach discussion. Why not check them out and add to your coaching toolbox?